Just on 1 o'clock now. Just before we start with this meeting, I just want to check with the procedural officer whether we are quorate already.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, members. Chairperson, yes, we are fully correct, Chairperson. Thank you. And I also see that Provincial Treasury is, National Treasury is in the meeting, Chair, led by Dr. Pakis. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much for that. I think we can then look to commence this this meeting of the Budget Committee on today, Wednesday, the 18th of February 2026. I would like to welcome all members to this committee, and along with our procedural officer, Mr. Dustin Davids, and then I would also like to welcome, I've noticed that Dr. Pakis from National Treasury is also with us. So I think what we can then do is just do the round of introductions. I am Leon van Wyk, the chair of the Budget Committee, and I'll now give members the opportunity then to introduce themselves. And then after that, we will move over to Dr. Pakis and any of his team who will be with us. So I think over to you, colleagues.
Good morning, Chairperson. It's Dave Bryant, member of the committee. I just want to just inform you my electricity is down at the place where I'm staying. So I'm on my phone, and if there is a disconnection at some stage, that is the reason. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Sorry, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Peter Johnson. I'm an alternate member of this committee.
Afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues. I'm Basil Peter.
Good afternoon, Chair and everyone. Noma Franchimbombo.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Toza Maditagong.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Member Boyson, and I am an alternate member of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues there. Welcome to the meeting. I'm now going to just give Dr. Pakis an opportunity to introduce himself and any of his team who may be with him or may be joining him.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon to the members. As indicated, I am the Papakis from within the National Treasury. I'm also joined by 5 of my colleagues who introduce themselves properly when they take turns in the presentation and the Q&A session. We've got Jokina, Megan, Nontlantla, Alia, and Manja. So today, honorable members, we will be speaking to you about Operation Vulindlela, and we appreciate the opportunity and the interest that the committee has made. And obviously, this is like the worst time for us with the budget process, preparing for the main budget, which will be delivered next Wednesday, which of course we will be coming back to yourselves in terms of the contents of that particular budget. So we appreciate, I think the committee is focused on the measures that will then unlock our growth and improve service delivery, while at the same time helping the country as a whole to stabilize in terms of its finances. Because ultimately, it is really just about unlocking some of the blockages that are within the system, and the operation within them has been able to assist us with that. So there's a presentation, honorable members, which we hope you have received, which we shared with the committee secretary, that details the content of our presentation with you today. We're also here to take some of the questions that you might have, some of the suggestions as well, as Operation Vulindlela 2 is in full swing, which is really a second wave of the structural reforms that are required in the system, following the progress that we've obviously made in terms of the energy sector, which has huge impact in terms of local government, an area that the committee will be interested in, as long as also along with it some reforms in the water space, which again are quite close to the committee based on our experience with the committee in the past. And issues around logistics as well. Yes, yes,
Dr. Pakis, yes, thank you for sort of leading into the introduction over there. Yeah, I think, certainly you are very welcome and your team is very welcome with us. And as indicated, to give us an update on Operation Vulindlela and the work that is being undertaken there. I think very important work, and I think we, as indicated, we are certainly very keen to gain a greater insight into the workings, and we also appreciate the fact that we are running very close to the upcoming budget now, and no doubt there are lots of pressures on yourself as well in that preparation. So I think if we could probably move straight into that presentation, if we can just get that loaded up, I imagine, and then um, uh, you will probably guide us into who will be dealing with aspects of that presentation, and then your team members can just introduce themselves if they are going to, or when they take a turn to be speaking. So over to you, Dr. Pakis, and your team. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Chair. Let's just get straight to it. Colleagues, over to you. Thank you.
Georgina, are you going to
Georgina?
start?
Sorry, who will be doing the first speaking here?
Can I confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can certainly hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. It's Georgina Ryan from the National Treasury Operation Vulindlela team. You are joined here by colleagues across the OV team that cover the network industries, electricity, logistics, water, as well as spatial and municipal reforms. So we've got a full team here to take you through the OV update. And what we'll be doing in this presentation is taking you through the rationale for the reforms that are in the pipeline for the phase 2 of Operation Vulindlela and the achievements of phase 1, and then an update from our most recent quarterly report, the third quarter report that was delivered recently. So without further ado, I'll take you through those particular aspects. I'll cover network industries and Megan will cover local government and spatial reforms. Just want to check that you can see the next slides.
That's right. That's it.
Okay, great. So starting with the rationale and the reason for the reforms, it's primarily around unlocking growth. And South Africa has had stagnated growth for around 15 years with low GDP growth, stagnant fixed capital formation and falling income per capita. We know that we're also lagging our peers in terms of performance, and the rate of unemployment is a persistent challenge. So the reforms are primarily designed to unlock growth and to see incremental progress and fast growth in our economy, the primary reason for the reforms. Operation Vulindlela was established out of the research work that was undertaken to understand growth in the country, the 2019 paper on growth. And in 2020, the first reforms were established through Operation Vulindlela, which is a partnership between the presidency and the National Treasury. Cabinet approved and reforms were started in 2020. We have this dedicated unit to deal with the reforms and capacitated both in the Treasury and the presidency. Amongst other things, we saw the establishment of the National Energy Crisis Committee and the National Logistics Committee as coordinating structures in 2022 and 2023. This particular delivery model is centered around determining the priorities for growth and actioning strategies to deliver that growth. We're iterative and adaptive in our approach. We have convening power, and we primarily drive tackling those obstacles that exist either in the technical or the political, and we are very focused on reporting and detailing performance. So some of the impact key indicators.
Just a moment, Georgina. I think there's someone whose microphone is on. If they could just silent microphones. Okay, you're back on the floor.
Sure, not a problem. So some of the key highlights from the first phase of the reforms centered around the network industries and telecommunications achievements. We did set out at achieving at least 94% of the reforms that we set out to achieve, an estimated 500 billion rand in investment unlocked, 22,500 megawatts of private investment in renewable energy projects, a reduction in data costs for the 1.5 gig bundle, and then also a significant turnaround in the 90 days required for water use licenses to be issued, down from the 300 days it used to take. So with that momentum in mind, we are seeing results in key sectors such as the energy sector, and this is a good example. Unlocking 400 billion rands in investment, private investment to date, and the pipeline of investments illustrated here. It means that the reforms are also set to impact on growth, and this is not just our research demonstrating this, but the Bureau of Economic Research has estimated that reforms could unlock up to 3.5% GDP by 2029. And then this is what we are planning for the second wave of reforms. Obviously, alleviating load shedding and improving the performance of logistics has remained a priority, reducing the cost of data, improving water supply, and enabling the country to attract skills. The reforms already underway through OV Phase 1 will provide significant boost to the economy in the medium term, but need to be fully implemented. And then we recognize that supporting and repositioning strategic state-owned enterprises by strengthening their balance sheets, enabling high levels of private investment in infrastructure, and improving their operational performance. The immediate priority is around sustaining and following through the implementing of existing reforms. And we recognize that we have to maintain the momentum on these reforms. We did recognize that for the second phase of reforms, we need to address local government and spatial inequality. And then these reforms must impact on growth and jobs. So the design of the second phase of reform builds on the first phase, where the priority of network industries is maintained, and we now have the new reforms on creating dynamic and integrated cities to enable economic activity. We added public digital infrastructure, and we added local government to the reform basket. And these reforms were all approved by Cabinet, and OV launched its second phase last year in 2025. So some of the achievements, as mentioned in phase one, were around investment in the electricity sector, the National Transmission Company of South Africa being established as an independent entity, the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act that was passed, and rooftop solar more than doubling in 1 year, as well as world-class renewable energy procurement program revived with over 10 gigs of wind, solar, and storage currently in procurement. These were all the achievements in phase one of energy reforms in Operation Vulindlela. And the priorities for phase two will include completing the restructuring of Eskom and the establishment of the independent transmission system operator, establishing a competitive wholesale market for electricity generation, streamlining the regulatory framework for energy projects through the Energy Security Bill, and the reform of the electricity distribution industry to establish financially and operationally sustainable distribution companies. And lastly, strengthening and expanding the national transmission network. On the logistics reforms, in phase one, we saw the launch of the Freight Logistics Roadmap, published to outline a clear path for reform of the logistics system. There was the draft network statement developed for the freight rail network to establish third-party access by private rail operators. Private sector participation was introduced in the container terminals for the first time, and the Economic Regulation of Transport Act was passed to provide independent regulation and enable competition in ports and rail. And lastly, the private sector participation unit was established to package and oversee implementation of PSP projects through Transnet and PRASA. So for phase two, the priorities under logistics include the completion and restructuring of Transnet and the establishment of an independent national ports authority and rail infrastructure manager, the enablement of open access to freight rail network, introduction of the private sector participation in ports rail through the dedicated PSP unit, the establishment of the Transport Economic Regulator, and the finalization of the National Rail Bill to establish a legal framework with the competitive rail sector. And then in water, in phase one, we saw, as mentioned before, the backlog of water use licenses dealt with, the establishment of the National Water Infrastructure Agency to provide a dedicated agency to own and manage bulk water infrastructure. Water quality monitoring system was reinstated for the first time since 2014 with the drop reports. And the raw water pricing strategy was revised to ensure, to secure cost recovery and renewed investment in infrastructure. And lastly, a water partnerships office was established to develop private sector projects in the water sector. And then for phase two, the priorities are to develop and implement a national water action plan. This will be linked to the National Water Crisis Committee, the implementation of the institutional reform to improve the management of water resources through the amendment of the Water Services Act, and then strengthening the regulation and oversight of water by introducing an independent regulator for water and supporting the introduction of private sector partnership in the water sector. I'm now going to hand over to Megan just to go over the rest of the reforms, and then we'll give you an update on what was achieved in Q3.
Thanks, Georgina. So in phase one, under the visa reforms, We had a comprehensive review of the work visa system and recommendations made for the reform. The revised immigration regulations were published, and this provides a point-based system and new visa categories. We also established the Trusted Employer Scheme, and this is to fast-track the process for major investors. The e-visa system was introduced to 34 different countries, and more than 50% of the backlog of existing visa applications was cleared. The priorities for the second phase of Operation Vulindlela under this reform area are firstly to implement the points-based system for critical skills visas and general work visas, then to implement the remote work visa, thirdly, to expand the Trusted Employer Scheme, and lastly, to expand and improve the e-visa system and implement the ETA for tourist visas. The next three reform areas are new reform areas that were introduced in Operation Vulindela's second phase. So I'll speak now to the priorities under each of these three. Can we go to the next slide? Thanks. So the first of the new reform areas is around improving service delivery in local government. Here there are four major priority areas. The first is to shift to a utility model for water and electricity services, and this is to ensure the financial and operational sustainability of these services. This is work that is being led by National Treasury around the metro trading services, and it requires that metros establish or appoint ring-fenced, professionally managed utilities for water and electricity, and that their technical support is being provided to those metros. The second is around standardizing and professionalizing the appointment of senior officials in local government. This includes firstly ensuring that municipal managers and CFOs meet the minimum standards for qualification, and secondly, expanding the mandate of the Public Service Commission to oversee compliance at a local government level as well. The third reform area is reviewing the institutional structure of the local government. This is being done through an updated white paper on local government. That paper we'll speak to the progress of in the slides coming up, but it's essentially looking at a fit-for-purpose local government system, and includes a review of both the powers and the functions, and an assessment of the appropriateness of the two-tier system at a local government level. And then lastly, I'm sure you're all aware of the work that's being done to review the local government fiscal framework, and that includes the use of conditional grants. If we can go to the next slide, please. The second new area is around addressing spatial inequality in South Africa, creating dynamic cities that support economic growth. There are 5 priorities under this umbrella reform. The first is to revitalize and restore passenger rail services. This involves a complete restoration of strategic corridors and upgrading of stations and rolling stock, as well as developing a roadmap for future passenger rail. The second is looking at strengthening demand-side housing policy, and that's in order to support densification. It includes redesigning or amending the formula under the First Home Finance Program and introducing a demand-side rental subsidy for affordable housing. The third is to release public land and buildings for affordable housing and other development. Here, it's about making available underutilized land that's owned by national government departments and looking at how this can be deployed for affordable housing. The fourth priority is to clear the backlog of title deeds and make the titling system more accessible and affordable. This involves addressing obstacles to titling, resolving outstanding planning approvals, raising the small estates threshold, and establishing mechanisms to resolve disputes over ownership. And then lastly, it's to review land use, buildings, and other regulations that enable low-cost property developments. And this is looking at the regulatory framework that supports low-cost development and what could be done here, including, for example, relaxing land use zoning schemes. If we go to the last slide, the third new addition to Operation Vulindlela's reform package is on digital transformation. There are 5 priorities under this reform area. The first is to develop and implement a digital transformation roadmap for South Africa. That is to put in place a clear roadmap that will drive catalytic projects and that will be governed by an interdepartmental working group. The second is implementing digital identity for secure and remote access to services. This includes establishing universal biometric enrollment and introducing a digital identity system together with a digital wallet. The third is to establish a data exchange for evidence-based policy making and service delivery. This is to integrate key administrative databases, enabling improved program design. The fourth is introducing digital payments for cost-effective and dignified transactions. Here, the intent is to enable real-time payments at no cost through multiple channels, and establish a payment bridge for government departments and agencies to be able to make payments directly to citizens. And then finally, the last priority is to create a trusted digital channel for accessing information and services, and this involves relaunching the gov.za platform to access information and services. Thanks, Georgina. I think, oh no, sorry, this one was slide here. So the overall intention is to sustain momentum and build momentum in the new reform areas in order to support economic growth, inclusive economic growth. And the expected impact over the coming years includes a massive increase in renewable energy projects. That's through private investment, more efficient ports and rails through private sector operators, an attractive and flexible visa system, as well as improved service delivery for citizens and businesses across all spheres of government. That is expected to produce a virtuous cycle that supports growth and job creation, where you have increased investment leading to economic growth, leading to job creation, that resulting in improved sentiment, and ultimately the cycle flows. Thanks, Georgina. I'll hand back to you now to go through the latest progress report on each of the reform areas.
Thanks, Megan. What we do on a quarterly basis is publish a report that tracks all the key indicators of the reforms for Operation Vulindlela Phase 2. This report is available publicly after we launch the report, and we do encourage you to take a look at the details of that report, but we'll give a high-level summary of the key highlights and the next steps that are found in that report. So for the energy sector, the key milestones achieved in the last quarter were around the National Energy Regulator of South Africa approving the market operator license for the NTSA. That happened in November 25. NERSA also approved the grid capacity allocation rules to ensure a fair and non-discriminatory access to limited grid capacity, and published the electricity trading rules for public comment in November, which is to establish a clear and transparent regulatory framework to enable electricity trading. 4 additional preferred bidders with a total capacity of 890 megawatts and expected investment of 16 billion rand have been announced for the 7th round of the REAP in December, bringing a total capacity secured through bid window 3 to 940 megawatts. And then lastly, 7 pre-qualified bidders have been appointed under the RFQ stage of phase 1 of the ITP project rolled out in December in response to the RFP issued. What we expect in the next quarter is to see detailed implementation plans for the TSO by March this year, the submission of the market code to NERSA for approval in order to establish the South African wholesale electricity market, and then a published detailed guidance on the structure of the competitive wholesale electricity market also later in this quarter. Finalizing the electricity trading rules following the submission of for public comment is also expected in this quarter. And lastly, the electricity distribution industry EDI reform roadmap will be finalized towards the end of this next quarter. Then on the logistics milestones and next steps, Transnet has maintained improved performance with the interim results for the next 6 months ending September, confirming an increase of 4.4% in rail volumes as it continues with its recovery program. A detailed technical assessment on the corporatization of the National Ports Authority has been concluded. Transnet and the International Container Terminal Services, Inc. have signed a 25-year agreement for the upgrade, development, and operation of the Durban Container Terminal, DCT Pier 2. And the partnership will enable investment of more than 11 billion in infrastructure, new equipment, and advanced technologies, raising the handling capacity from 2 million to 2.8 million 20-foot equivalent units. 7 of the 11 train operator companies are allocated with slots that will commence operating on the freight rail network in the first quarter of 2027. And this follows the announcement of the allocation of 41 slots and ongoing work to finalize contracting. In the next quarter, we anticipate that a published revised network statement incorporating IREC recommendations and an updated access tariff for implementation in the new financial year. We hope to see the finalization of the detailed plan for the TNPA corporatization following technical assessment and the operationalizing the Transport Economic Regulator with the appointment of a board and additional staff appointments by April. And then lastly, developing bid windows and launch of the first phase of the RFPs for private sector participation projects in strategic rail and ports corridors are anticipated by June. In the water sector, the preparations for the establishment of the National Resources Water Infrastructure Agency have progressed. They include completion of the National Bulk Water Infrastructure Asset Register, consolidation of contracts for transfer, the development of transitional governance arrangements, and the agency remains on track for establishment in April 2026, subject to board and management appointments. The Water Services Amendment Bill was tabled in Parliament in October and considered by the Portfolio Committee in November and December, and the bill clarifies the separation between water service authorities and water service providers and introduces a licensing framework to strengthen regulation of water services. And lastly, progress towards establishing an independent regulator has continued, and the term of the advisory committee has been extended to complete this work. In the next quarter, we anticipate the board appointment of the NWRIA and preparations for the NWRIA to be fully established. Securing the adoption of the Water Services Amendment Bill by the National Assembly is anticipated this next quarter. And we want to see the advancement of performance-based contracts for non-revenue water and procurement through the implementation of the Water Partnerships Office in the DBSA. Megan, I'll hand over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Georgina. For visas, the key milestones to date in phase 2 are almost 40,000 travelers from China and India obtained visas through the Trusted Tour Operator Scheme to visit South Africa. We had more than 60,000 arrivals processed through the electronic travel authorization, and that enables online visa submissions using biometrics and receiving real-time approvals. It's expected that that will lead to an additional 1 million international arrivals and create between 80,000 and 100,000 jobs in the tourism sector. Then last year, we saw a significant increase in the number of international tourist arrivals between January 2025 and October 2025. Around 8.56 million people visited the country. This was up by 1.3 million new arrivals compared to the same period in 2024. And then lastly, the Department of Home Affairs announced the gazetting of the new Screen Talent and Global Entertainment Scheme in November 2025. That's to boost South Africa's standing as a leading destination for film and other creative productions. The next steps for visa reforms are to invite companies to apply for accreditation in the film industry production scheme, and that's to streamline the process for film productions. Then to expand the ETA to become a single entry point for tourist visas for all countries that require visas visiting South Africa. And lastly, to clear the appeals applications backlog. If we go to the next slide, please. For local government reforms, the metros that are included in the first cohort of the Metro Trading Services reform, which applies to 12 metro trading services across 7 of the metros, will access their incentive allocations through the adjustment budget. The metros are progressing in the implementation of 8 minimum accountability commitments, and that is in order to enable the ring fencing of trading services. And this will strengthen management accountability and financial transparency. Then regarding the white paper on local government, about 266 submissions were received from stakeholders in response to the discussion document that was published, and this will inform the review underway. On the fiscal framework review, that work is ongoing. The review intends to look at the adequacy, sustainability, and equity of intergovernmental fiscal arrangements for local government. And lastly, work is underway to finalize the MFMA amendment bill, and that aims to improve municipal financial management, accountability, and oversight. That's expected to be published for comment and countrywide consultation once the bill has been approved. The next steps under this reform area are firstly to support metros to refine their financial models, their investment plans, and their performance plans to strengthen credible performance targets. Then to produce the final draft of the reviewed white paper on local government, and that's expected in March. Then the public consultations on the draft MFMA amendment bill, and lastly, to collect outstanding data from municipalities, which is required for the fiscal framework review, and to complete an expenditure analysis in the fourth quarter. If we go to the next slide. On spatial inequality, an affordable rental housing model has been developed. This is based on work conducted in the city of Johannesburg. The draft report has been presented to key stakeholders and should be finalized in the coming month. Then the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure has established a strategic and special delivery unit. This will be responsible for fast-tracking the delivery of key infrastructure projects. It's also conducting an audit of all publicly owned land and buildings, and that will be used to identify priority land and properties to be released for housing developments. And then lastly, that unit is also developing a standard land release methodology to accelerate the release of land and ensure that it is used in the public interest. The next steps here are firstly to complete an analysis of the title deeds data to determine the scale of the backlog and inform prioritization and sequencing of interventions that are required to clear it. Then to finalize the standard model for public land release and identify priority land and properties for the pilot phase. And lastly, to implement the affordable rental housing model to test its effectiveness, or the effectiveness rather, of a demand side subsidy. Then in the last reform area on digital transformation, the Mzansi Exchange pilot, which is intended to establish a data exchange to share data across government, has now entered into implementation. It was launched in October last year. The My Mzansi Citizen Services platform also reached a key milestone. It has a working prototype now being demonstrated and in November last year, and this confirms the feasibility of a single digital entry point for accessing government services. Then the gov.za platform has achieved full national zero rating across mobile operators, and this enables cost-free access to government information. The South African Reserve Bank acquired a 50% stake in Pay Inc., and this is part of its efforts to modernize its payment system and establish a national payments utility. And lastly, engagements with SASSA have commenced, and this is to link government payments to verified accounts and store of value wallets. The next steps under this reform area are to review the options for the institutional model that has emerged from the World Bank study, to launch early public access to the My Mzansi platform for select test groups, and this will prioritize high impact service use cases. And lastly, to operationalize task teams to support the My Mzansi Exchange pilot and progress integration with the SARB's public key infrastructure. Thank you. I think that concludes our presentation, and we are happy to take questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much there to the team for this presentation. It's certainly quite a stunning presentation, and I think all of us would probably need to take a little while to try and absorb everything that has been put across to us and has been included in the presentation. So I think certainly this is a very a good addition to, or very good and optimistic type of news that we need to understand and to move forward into enabling economic growth. So I think certainly that is, thank you very much for that presentation. I do already see Member Dave Bryant, whose hand is up to ask questions. And I also have a number of comments, questions at some stage. But over to you, Member Bryant.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and I hope you won't mind. I won't put my camera on because I'm working from my phone and it's a little bit tricky. Firstly, thanks very much for both presentations, although we were one presentation together. I do think as well that's a presentation that we could probably have at many of our committees, possibly at infrastructure and also at the Economic Development Committee as well, because it does cover so many different aspects through Operation Vulindlela. And as you mentioned, it does look like there are some very exciting things underway and already quite a few achievements that have been made in such a short space of time. Just a couple of questions from my side. The first one is you mentioned the milestone around the investment in renewable infrastructure. I know you have already mentioned rooftop solar, which is, obviously also something that requires an enabling environment from municipalities and a lot of private money that goes into that, facilitated by the wheeling and all of those other enabling mechanisms that are put in place. But where has the majority of that investment in renewable been? And has it been mainly in solar, mainly in rooftop solar, or are you talking about larger PV installations or wind power? I just wonder if you're able to answer that one. If not, I also understand because it might be a bit too specific of a question. Then in terms of the restructuring of Eskom, this is something that I know was a little bit, I would say contentious, but caused a little bit of confusion, I know, in the run-up to the State of the Nation, where we were hearing one thing from the National Minister and then the President announced something slightly different in terms of a willingness to continue with the unbundling and the restructuring of Eskom. I just want to find out if that is something that is being factored in as a fait accompli, or if it is something that has to sort of shift with the tide, so to speak. And then lastly, in terms of the affordable housing and the push for the release of land underutilized or vacant land owned by governments. I see obviously there is a big push to release this for affordable housing, which is very important. It is important obviously as well to ensure that we release a certain amount of land for other purposes as well. The commercial aspects and the economic development aspects are very, very important. In particular, if you are attempting to try and develop these dynamic cities that have been spoken about. Obviously, local government and the failures of many of the municipalities is a stumbling block that I think needs to be addressed before we go too much into the blue sky stuff. but the release of land is very, very important. And centrally, this is a sort of my key question here is, have you considered the issue of rates, municipal rates, and the impact that has on well-located, affordable housing projects? We know that the Municipal Property Rates Act does allow rebates for indigent persons and pensioners and that. But there's obviously no specific provision for what one would term historically disadvantaged individuals or people who live in an area who may be earning enough to put them just above the indigent rebate or rates rebates bracket. But with increasing rates in those areas, would still find it very difficult to own a home, even if it is a very small property, due to rates. So is that something that's being looked at in terms of legislation and potentially trying to find ways to get around that? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Member Bryant. I'd probably want to add a couple of issues there to yours, but I'm first going to allow Member Beatrice an opportunity.
Good afternoon, Chair, again, and colleagues. Chair, there was 266 submissions on the local government reforms. How many of that submissions was from municipalities, local municipalities? And then not much is said about the local economy and small businesses. What is the position on that? And where does that fit in?
Okay, thank you for that, Member Beatrice. I think if I can perhaps just add a few aspects to the presentation, and I think Member Bryant touched briefly on the whole transmission grid, and I think the importance there certainly being perceived by many is that transmission grid gets expanded as soon as possible, because we are not going to be able to see major economic growth without the additional electricity that one needs throughout the country. And I think if one just looks at what's taken place internationally with the number of data centers that are now going to need to be required in terms of the development of AI throughout the world and the rapid development there, there certainly is an indication that one needs to get that upgrade coming through as rapidly as possible. So just perhaps some clarity on that. And then there was also mention in relation to the MFMA and amendments to that act. I come recently out of local government, where I was mayor of one of the secondary cities, being George, and certainly many of the issues that we faced at that time related to the restrictions within the MFMA to make the rapid progress that one needs to make in terms of the procurement, additional procurement for electricity, and in that whole water, wastewater space. And I think those amendments certainly are needed. So hopefully that comes within that level of reform. You've also touched on local government reform, which needs to be, I believe it needs to be implemented pretty rapidly to provide greater tools for the municipalities to undertake the type of work that they need to do, because certainly within the water and wastewater space, we are seeing crumbling infrastructure, and the very big concern as to how municipalities are going to be dealing with it. And I think what you're referring to here is that bringing in the private sector to assist on that. So if you could possibly elaborate on some of those areas, I think that would be good. Also, you mentioned in relation to the Port of Durban and certain of the work that's been done there. The Port of Cape Town is also of concern in the improvements that are going to be needed there, especially in relation to exports and the for the agricultural sector. So I think perhaps at this stage, I don't see any further answer. Perhaps if you could give us some insight or some responses to that, that would be appreciated. Thanks.
I can come in first to answer some of the questions, and then my colleagues can come in for the others. On the question regarding the impact of rates and underutilized land, we have completed a regulatory review which looked at what levers could potentially be pulled in order to accelerate the delivery of affordable housing. And one of the issues that came up was around development charges and rates, and that is work that the city support program is leading on with the support of Operation Vulindlela. So we haven't really yet conceptualized exactly, well, sorry, not conceptualized, but we haven't really begun the implementation of any of that work. But there is definitely a clear finding that that is an obstacle to advancing access to affordable housing. So yes, it is definitely something we are considering. On the question of how many submissions in response to the white paper on local government discussion document came from local municipalities, that disaggregated breakdown of the submissions is available and we can share it with you, but I think it was 23 that came from local municipalities. And then on the question about small businesses, I think it's I won't be able to provide a sufficient answer now, but just to say that one of the themes that the review of the white paper is looking at is the concept of local economic development and the role that government plays there. And it's the draft that will be produced for comment is expected in March, but it will lay out certain principles and policy proposals around like how we have thought about local economic development and how we should be thinking about it going forward. I'll let my other colleagues come in on some of the other questions. Go ahead, Nonhlanhla.
Right, you can go ahead, Nonhlanhla.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm Nonhlanhla Msimang. I'm also a member of the Operation Vulindlela team. So I just wanted to respond to the question on the investment in renewable energy. So what actually emerged was that during the height or the peak of load shedding, and when government also introduced the tax incentives towards rooftop PV, we saw quite a sharp increase in those types of investments. And Eskom now publishes that data, and that number is sitting at over 7,000 megawatts of just that category of investments, rooftop PV at a household level. But we understand from a breakdown of the data that it does also include businesses. So that was a separate category that was also in response to load shedding specifically. But the pipeline that we were referring to is more the utility scale projects. When we compiled that, it was largely from the mining industry as well, where they were, looking to be off-takers in a lot of these projects. And so that pipeline showed a strong support from the mining industry. But I think what we've seen is that it's largely in PV, but with recent data from Eskom, we do see that wind capacity is also quite strong. But I suppose the challenge has been the grid constraints. But strong pipeline from business. Initially, it was quite a bit from the mining industry, but we know that it's more spread out than that, and also it does contain wind capacity. We did publish in our latest quarterly report that pipeline, which is the NTCSA recently published, and you can see the breakdown by technology. So it's quite a good split between wind and solar PV, but at least with the rooftop capacity, that data is reported separately, and we've seen quite a strong growth there as, I suppose, households and small businesses responded to load shedding, from 2023, particularly. Then on the Eskom restructuring, I think it's just to confirm that we are proceeding with the plans as announced by the president in Isona. So the task team is being established, and the task team will undertake the work of designing the roadmap for unbundling the transmission entity, but with the ultimate goal in mind and end state that the assets will be also transitioned out of Eskom into the transmission system operator. So that is, that work has already now been initiated in establishing the task team and defining the scope of the work that will be undertaken within the task team. And then there was a question on the transmission grid. I think, that is more, I suppose, something that we would most definitely agree with, that, transmission investments remain critical if we are to achieve the objective of increasing energy generation outside of Eskom. And, part of it will be facilitated by unbundling the transmission system operator and, establishing the wholesale electricity market. So that's almost an enabling, creating an enabling environment to ensure that you can increase these investments. So that's on the one hand, that work. But, there's also internally, coupled with this unbundling processes, to ensure that, the entity starts operating a bit more independently, and that they can start carrying out the necessary investments that, we know historically didn't always take place. And this has also been supported by tariff application, where the regulators allowed the different divisions to submit different tariffs and ensure that the revenues are somewhat earmarked so that we can get the transmission investments. But also there's the work that government is doing to bring in the private sector through the independent transmission projects, because there's a recognition that, Eskom's pace and, scale, to, in building out the transmission network is not going to be sufficient. So so the government is working then towards, establishing the credit guarantee vehicle scheme and bringing in the private sector to also support in the building out of the transmission grid. And I think with the question on the, I took it as a comment on the Port of Cape Town. I think certainly that is well noted, and the work of improving efficiencies, both within rail and ports, continue to be prioritized within the the reform agenda in logistics, particularly, ongoing work within the National Logistics Crisis Committee. So I think, certainly those are, areas of performance that we continue tracking, and various work streams are supporting. Thanks, I'll stop here.
Thank you there. I see Dr. Pakkies, I see your hand.
Yes, no, thanks, Chair. Comments and the questions. Just want to add on the limited responses that we receive from municipalities in terms of the white paper. Indeed, it was a surprise. We expected that, this being what many call a mini constitution for local government, we would have an overwhelming number of inputs from municipalities, but that wasn't to be. But the voice of local government is well within the processes that followed that. So after the public submissions, a document was then again put together, and there's been a number of sessions that through SALGA have been arranged with not just municipalities, but also some sector departments as well that may have missed the opportunity to make inputs, so that we can also record those inputs as well. So in the final document, really, there's going to be a strong voice that is coming from local government in the white paper. Similarly as well, I think, Chair, you have alluded to the importance of the work around the funding model for local government, and again, through SALGA, we're also engaging municipalities in terms of getting their perspectives here. From our side, we have a sample size of 32 municipalities that we have reached out to, where we're going to be having case studies around issues that are emerging in that space. We're meeting with the MMs, the CFOs, but also with senior managers from the strategy department, so that we can devise a system that is able to respond to the many challenges that local government is facing. The sample is quite representative in these early stages, but also through SALGA, we're also going to have a mass consultation with municipalities. You've also made the point, Chair, around the importance of this work, and we realize that this, is a reform that we needed quite a long time ago. But there's an opportunity now with the white paper, so that we can really align the two, with the white paper coming with some policy proposals, but also just the direction and principles that need to be considered in this day and age as we then formulate the funding model. So with the white paper envisaged to be finished in March, which is next month, we have then started also with the collation of the data. And for our processes as well, we will be concluding the local government fiscal framework review in October, with the view that we will start making some signal through the 2027 budget with implementation for the new municipal administration after the elections. And of course, we do target a phased approach to ensure that it doesn't destabilize our local government quite significantly in making those particular changes as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much there for your comments. I'm now going to allow Member Stoffel. I see your hand is up. You can go ahead, Member Stoffel.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Am I audible, Chair?
Certainly, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone on the platform. And let me appreciate the presentation from Treasury. It's quite a good presentation. It's just a pity this presentation can cascade to the committees. I think it's needed. This presentation is needed maybe at a economical subcommittee, whereby we can break this presentation into discussion points, because really it's quite a good presentation. And what a person can appreciate from the presentation is that this time around the presentation have also timelines. And I think we should appreciate that. Chairperson, my question is on page 23 of the presentation, whereby you said we need a sustained momentum of the economic reform agenda to achieve more rapid and inclusive growth. Now, if you look at that bullets there, the last one, improve service delivery for citizens and businesses at all levels of government. And then you look at the key objectives, drive more rapid and inclusive growth over the next 5 years by accelerating economic reforms. We agree, Chairperson, of that, but the issue is that within our provinces, obvious, and when you look into the demarcation of our provinces and the geographical, it's not the same like other provinces. Each and every province got its own challenges in terms when it comes geographical. Now, you take this statement and you put it in your municipalities and you look into investment and economic growth, and you look in terms of job creation, all those changing sentiments, and you will find that some of your municipalities, there's no potential for this, or the potential for this is very limited. And I would love the presenters, Dr. Pakis, maybe to give us more in that. How is government going to deal with such? And then also, in terms of this participation, when it comes to public participation in terms of inputs of whatever, like the way they put it now, even the municipality managers in terms of inputs for the white paper, instead of doing it only on online and digital, is there maybe a platform where there can be a walk-in platform where people can go and give their inputs and try to contribute towards a positive outcome of whatever wanted to be implemented? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Stoffel. I think certainly you've raised a couple of interesting aspects there. I think the whole aspect of having a local economic or a local economy that is vibrant and is active, and that is very much, well, it certainly is needed within a municipality, for that municipality to be financially sustainable at the end of the day, and that continues to remain quite a challenge that we have. I think just to possibly add to some of the aspects that have already been raised, and I think there was some touching in the presentation to the film sector. Now that whole, there seems to be quite a amount of media publicity relating to the film sector and the importance of ensuring that that film sector is able to thrive and to add to the economy and add to economic activity. So I hope that is also been taken into account. And further, there's also a fair amount of concern about the motor industry and the motor manufacturing, along with probably the rest of the manufacturing sector as such, on to make sure that there are possibly reforms and an approach there to make sure that industry can also add to the amount of economic activity and to the number of jobs that are available. So I think those are some of those aspects. And then, are we likely to see any shifts in the budget at this stage? Because I imagine we need to be starting to look at budgetary shifts to fully support the level of reforms that we are looking at. I'm just looking to see if there are any further questions from members at this stage. It doesn't look like at that point, so we can possibly start looking to wrapping up with the responses to these questions. The one point that I'd perhaps just like to add there was reference to a website where the updates are published. So it would just be appreciated if you could make that website access, the internet address there, so that members could possibly make a note of that, so that we can all just see the level of activity that's taking place. You know, this was not only a mouthful of a presentation, it was virtually a table full of information, of data that you've supplied here to us. So I think just I'm handing over to the team now to see to what extent you can deal with some of these aspects. Thanks.
I'll come in first just to say that the white paper is looking at the appropriateness of the two-tier system of local government, and that includes making assessments about what is feasible or possible for municipalities where the indigent population is very high or the prospect for economic growth is very low. So that I think is something to look out for and to engage with when the draft is produced in the coming month. On the question about the consultations, I think maybe that SEPA can answer that, because I haven't been directly involved in how the consultations are designed.
If I can just come in, Chair, I'm appreciating the inputs again. So with regards to the question of those municipalities, so the earlier submission, or let me call it the preliminary report, is quite clear on how, you know, this issue should be taken forward in terms of those municipalities with no prospects for growth. It still calls for a government that is you know, re-looking at the issue of differentiation, meaning that the funding model for those municipalities should be different from those affluent that can actually, you know, raise some sort of revenue. So grant dependency is something that is still looked at there. However, to amplify that, there is a proposed role that is being put forward for the municipal demarcation board in terms of the assessment. As the committee members would be aware, that whether a municipality exists in its current form or it's merged with another municipality is the work, is the analytical work that is done by the municipal demarcation board. So they've been given a more, I would say, eye into, you know, looking at the viability, using newer approaches to address that question as well. So from the earlier version that we have seen and worked on in terms of this, seemingly a greater emphasis on doing the analysis better, but also having a differentiated approach to how we deal with those. And then on the issue of consultation and how these are designed, so it's been mostly online virtual meetings that have taken place, where I think in advance we would send, so SALCA has emails for the municipalities, and then from their side, they would take the availability. Then we'd have about 4 sessions that are covering those kind of engagements where now we would present the kind of work that we have done. So for the local government fiscal framework aside, we have interviewed 77 municipal officials that are coming from 25 municipalities. And then we have then complemented that with an online meeting, two of them. One was for the political segment, the other one was for the administration. And there we managed to cover more than 76 I think, municipalities that attended on that session. And obviously here, all the municipalities have been part of these invites. Some would then make a conscious decision not to make it, perhaps at times where we didn't get an apology, we would then move on and think maybe they are things covered by others that participated there. And then we've also been invited in these ASALCA arranged forums that consist of the mayors, the MMs and the CFOs that they run across the country, where now we would also just articulate what is coming from these reviews, where the process is, and then also sort some inputs from the members that attend those. I think it's called MTAs or something like that. So we've really have had those extensive in-person, but mostly online platforms where we have been calling for invites. And Cocktail as well has also made, I think there has been a number of big forums that included the political arms as well, that have been arranged, where the Deputy Minister of Cocktail has then presented on the work, and then also again calls for additional inputs have been made in those areas as well. Then in terms of whether there are any shifts that we can start to see that are opening up to these reforms. Indeed, honorable members, I think the colleagues have spoken quite in detail about the local government reforms in particular, where the metro trading services is also going to get a major injection in terms of the budget. We will give you more details on that, honorable members, once we've been called to come and brief you on the 2026 division of revenue bill. But the shifts are starting to come there. There's massive investment that government is making in really supporting the trading services. And of course, we're starting with the metros, but this reform is also going to be extended to the secondary cities and to also other cities after that as well, once we've learned how the system has settled on this. There are also other pilots that are running, especially in Mpumalanga, starting in this 2026 budget that will be announced, which are also looking at a utility model, but for the more smaller municipalities in nature that usually don't have a big revenue base to look at, but also where systems need to be improved. So they and also the question of public as well as private participation in that avenue as well is being explored, so that we can learn from that pilot and then be able to roll it out to the relevant municipalities, having tailored it for the different segments in terms of the differentiation. Thanks a lot, Chair.
Thanks. Thanks very much there, Dr. Pakis. I don't know if there are any additional comments that your team would like to make. because I think, yeah, are there, Georgina? You can go ahead.
Thank you. Just a last comment. We can't place a comment in the chat. So for the publication of the quarterly report from Operation Vulindlela, it's available on the Treasury website, published under our media releases, and then also on the stateofnation.gov.za through the presidency. So the report gets published quarterly on both the Treasury and the State of the Nation web addresses.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll certainly uh, make sure that we make use of those and regularly update ourselves on the progress that you are making. I think at this stage, I think I would like to certainly thank you for a most comprehensive and interesting and exciting presentation that you have delivered to us. I think it is of great value to the Budget Committee, and I think as a number of the members have indicated, that the other portfolio committees within our provincial parliament should also take note of the excellent work that is being done. And, we certainly wish to extend our good wishes to yourselves that these projects and the work that's been undertaken can be undertaken as speedily as possible, and that the reforms can be implemented soon, so that we can start seeing the progress that we make in terms of increased economic activity, increased jobs, and greater well-being for all of our citizens. I think it is something that is really needed by all of us, and I think, as indicated in the presentation, that we've seen sub-average type of economic growth over the last 15 years, and we now need to restore that and take our country forward. So I think with that, I would like to certainly say thanks and excuse you. And I guess you've got to get back to aspects of dealing with the budget next week and also dealing with these reforms. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Hi, colleagues. I think we are sort of back to our committee team. So I think that to me was a very useful presentation that we have received. And I think we can possibly move on to the second item on our agenda. And that item really deals with possibly some comment and discussion from yourselves on the various initiatives that we've had over the last few months being introduced to the Budget Committee, in which we had the Bureau for Economic Research from the University of Stellenbosch. We also had the Fiscal and Finance Commission, who've made presentations to us. And then we also made a request to the research department within the WCPP to give us a look at the various budgets of the departments, and to look in that as to whether they could identify areas where we needed to possibly have more funding. Unfortunately, that report only covered 9 of our departments, so 4 of the departments were not covered by them due to the time pressures that they had at that stage going into the end of November. So I think we have certainly been given a very valuable insight into aspects of budgets and where budget needs are. I think the difficulty that we do have, and I think that the province has, and I think all provinces have, is that there's very little room to maneuver within the budgetary funds that get allocated to the province and become available to the province and then need to be allocated across the various departments and the various services that we need to deliver. And I think all of us are well aware that between education and health, it's over 70%, 72, 73% of our budget already gets allocated into those two essential services and departments. And we all are aware that both of those departments need more funding, along with the aspect of the remaining funding, then going into areas where we will probably all agree that we certainly need more funding to satisfy the needs of our citizens. And it's also, I think, fairly well known within the province and within Parliament that we all believe that we need a greater slice of the equitable share to really fulfill all of our needs. So I would like to sort of open up to any comment or any discussion that any of you may wish to offer. Okay. I'm not hearing terribly much from yourselves. Any comments from anyone on what we have dealt with, or are we fairly comfortable in having been informed by the inputs that we've had? I notice Member Bryant and I think Member Stoffel. I'm not sure if you wish to make a comment, Member Bryant.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, yeah, look, my earlier point, and I think Member Stoffel also made it, around this, being a presentation that could be given to some of the other committees as well is an important one. Whilst it is good for us to hear from National Treasury, it's also vitally important that we are given the opportunity to feed our information and our experience as public reps, and also as the administration, and with the assistance of the expertise of our own officials, back into their planning processes. And I think particularly things that relate to municipalities are very, very important for us to be not only advised of, but also consulted on and given an opportunity to workshop those as well. So just thank you to you, Chair, for ensuring that this took place, and for ensuring that we were allowed and afforded the opportunity to make our inputs and ask questions. Thanks.
Yes, so look, I agree with you with that. And, what I'm possibly just thinking is the extent to which, how we could well then circulate this presentation. And I'm thinking also of the presentation, for instance, made by the BER, where they also provided a certain amount of input. And, certainly we seem to be living in an environment where a presentation made during November, where we are call it 3 months later, you can already see elements of change that are taking place. So I think we are certainly living in a fairly fast-moving and dynamic environment. Member Stoffel?
Thank you, Chairperson. Am I still audible, Chair?
You are.
Thank you very much. Chair, I really should appreciate the presentation. And without repeating what Member Bryant have said, I fully agree with him. And then also, Chair, if you look into the reason why we say there's a need for this thing to go maybe to reach a committee level is that if you look to the spatial inequality, there they talk about affordable rental housing model. Now, in most of our municipalities currently, we are sitting with the issue of land. Where are you going to build these houses? And currently, all the municipalities in the Western Cape doesn't make, maybe other municipalities, I don't know, but I'm talking about Western Cape. Land is quite a challenge in the Western Cape. Within the rural areas, you can't build these affordable houses for the middle class. You can't build. So I think within the presentation itself, there should be more clarity because they come with a model of the city of Joburg. Demographical, we are not Joburg. We've got our own dynamics within. So what I'm trying to say, Chair, is that maybe if they can really look into whether at some later stage, bring back the presentation and because I'm skeptical, Chair, they talk about timelines by end of March 2026. But we're already in February. And we still not certain how are we going to deal with the issue within our own provinces. So Chair, I really appreciate, but that's my smaller input in terms and appreciation in terms of the presentation. And there's a lot of other issues that I can mention in this presentation that they need some clarity and all those kind of things. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Member Stoffel. Yes, look, certainly I agree with you. I think what Operation Vulindlela is really a work in progress project at this stage. So there are so many components to that project, and spatial inequality certainly is a very important aspect to it. And hopefully what we are going to see is as each of these aspects, each of these projects are delved into and tackled, the wider ramifications of how one implements that project. Certainly in dealing with it in a Johannesburg or a metropolitan area is going to be very different to many of the local municipalities, but hopefully they are trying to establish certain level of principles and call it a roadmap in which which can then be followed to ensure that all of those aspects get unpacked. And I think it is also quite important for us to follow these updates on the quarters as we go through the quarterly reports to see what is being done. And I think, as has been indicated, we need probably each of our committees to become a little bit more acquainted with the work that is being undertaken, so that we can, in each of our committees, then possibly raise these for topics of discussion with the various departments. I don't know if there are any further hands or any comments at this stage. We can perhaps then, if there isn't, perhaps just try and ask the procedural officer, Mr. David, if he perhaps has any thought on how we capture what has been said, and how we could then disseminate or distribute these presentations to the wider audience of the provincial parliament, to the committees. I don't know if you have any thoughts there, Mr. David.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Thanks, Chair. Chair, basically what I will do from the Secretariat side, Chair, I will basically email all of the procedural officers with the presentation of what this committee has been presented with Chairperson, and basically request them that emanating from this meeting that they consult with their chairpersons on how the respective committees can engage with the various departments, the affected government departments, chairperson of the Western Cape government regarding Operation Lula, chairperson. Yeah, Chair, so that is basically what I can do from the Secretariat point of view, chairperson, to the rest of the POs, the procedural officers, for consultation with their respective chairpersons, Chair, for further engagement and follow a back report to this committee, chairperson. Thank you.
Good, thank you. I think that could well be an elegant way forward. I think while leaving the committee a moment to think about that, I think we can probably move to the next point of the agenda in the meantime. And I think we certainly have a small file full of minutes of meetings that we now need to approve, procedural officer. So I think if we could perhaps then find a way there, as you have, to flight these various reports that we have and minutes, and if we can then ask for approval from members who attended those specific meetings. So the first one we've got is the quarterly report of the Budget Committee for July through September 2025. And I think I became a chair during that period of time. So I think if we just look at the members, I see members Mbombo, Petrus, and Stoffel and Litakong were members of the committee at the time.
Chairperson, is it fine if I just talk the committee through this report, Chair, and the minutes?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I would like to suggest, Chair, that I talk the members through all of these reports and the minutes, Chair, and then you can maybe just request for a move and a shaker of all the documents all at once, Chair.
Yes, we certainly can do that. I think that will be the easiest way around it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, so this is the report for the second quarter, Chair, for July, September, Chairperson 2025, Chair. Chair, as you mentioned, the membership were there, indicating including the alternate members, Chairperson, as per the ATC of that time, Chair. Chairperson, we basically have the mandate of the committee, Chairperson, as per the standing rules of WCPP, Chairperson. Chair, over the quarter, Chair, the committee conducted 6 meetings. The meetings in July, Chairperson, if you can recall, the members can recall, was basically just to deal with the new division of revenue bill, Chair, from the National Assembly, as they called it, the budget version 2.0, Chair. So that happened in July, Chairperson, last year, where the Budget Committee was referred that DORA Bill, Chairperson, basically just to sit on and to get a provincial mandate and negotiating mandate and final mandate, Chair. So that happened between the 4th of July, Chair, and the 9th of July, Chair. Chairperson, then the 16th of August, there was an in-committee meeting, Chairperson. Yeah, it was a very brief meeting, Chair. And then the 22nd of August, Chair, that was the most important meeting, Chairperson, where there was an election of the Chairperson, yourself, Chair, and where the FFC came to brief the committee, Chairperson, on the recommendations regarding the 26-27 Division of Revenue Bill, Chairperson. Chairperson, then on the 30th of September, we had Provincial Treasury that basically came to brief the committee on the payroll and the first quarter financial and non-financial performance information of the Western Cape Government, Chairperson. Chairperson, we've taken from our minutes, Chairperson, of all of the meetings for the quarter, and we basically indicated all the members that attended and those members who attended, their apologies, Chairperson. So yeah, there we go, Chairperson. Some of the members, as you can see, for example, Member Lacker, I'm just making an example, Chair. She's an additional member, Chair, and she was only by the 30th of September meeting, Chair. So yeah, all of them, Member Sayed and Member Maria as well, Chairperson, just as an example. Chair, there were no meetings postponed or cancelled. The legislation that was finalized, Chair, was the Division of Revenue Bill, as I indicated, Chair, version 2.0, Chair. And then, Chairperson, basically, excuse me for that, Chair, if I can just go back here, Chair. Yes, and then, Chair, there were no oversight visits, there were no inter-provincial visits, so there were no international study visits, Chairperson. And then, Chairperson, there were no invitations for the committee or the Chairperson in terms of any external bodies or organizations to attend functions, and there were no workshops and conferences which the committee attended, Chair. Chair, the allocation for this committee for the financial year, Chair, is 186,111. And Chairperson, the total expenditure for the quarter, Chairperson, was 41,396.98, which left a balance of 144,714 rand and 2 cents, Chairperson. Chairperson, and then basically, if this report is adopted, it will just go through the signatures, Chair, and it will be filed away, Chairperson. Chair, for the third quarter under review, Chairperson, once again, Chair, the membership is reflected there, Chair, as per the ATC. The alternate members is also there, Chair. The mandate of the committee is there according to the standing rules of WCPP. And then, Chairperson, the committee had 8 meetings. It was very busy for the committee, Chairperson. 3rd of October, Provincial Treasury Auditor General, Chair, where we had the outcomes of the audit outcomes of the Western Cape Government Departments, Chair. And then, Chairperson, as you are well aware, the 28th of November, as you alluded to earlier, the BER came to brief the committee, Chairperson. Chairperson, the 4th of December, Provincial Treasury came to brief us on the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill, as well as the medium-term budget statement, Chair, policy statement, and as well as the second quarter performance and non-performance of the Western Cape Government, Chairperson. The 5th of December, Chair, that Friday, we had 2 meetings, if you can recall, Chair, to discuss the DORA, Chair, the DORA, AAB, the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chair. The first meeting, Chair, due to the challenging programming, Chair, because there were a lot of committee meetings happening in that week and the following week, Chair. So this meeting was divided into 1 o'clock meeting and a 4 o'clock meeting, Chair, on the 5th of December. So the 5th of December, the 1 o'clock meeting, Chair, we had the NCOP, Honorable Paul Swart, that came to present to the committee, Chair. Then the committee adjourned, Chair. And this 5th of December, Chair, National Treasury came at 4 o'clock and they came to brief the committee on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chair, and there was also a public hearing, but there were no inputs from the members of the public or organizations, Chair. Chairperson, then the 8th of December, Chair, was a in-committee meeting where the committee basically considered and adopted its negotiating mandate on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chair. And then on the 9th, Chair, it was basically, Chair, where the committee looked at its final mandate, Chair, as well as its adjustments, Chairperson. And then, Chair, there was a 10th of December meeting as well, an in-committee meeting, Chair, where the committee looked at its final mandate, Chairperson, on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. Chairperson, then basically, once again, just from our minutes, Chair, that we captured, we normally capture all of the members in our minutes, and we transpose that onto this document here, Chairperson. So there were some apologies, Chairperson, and it was basically captured, Chair, all of the members that were there and that were not there. Chairperson, basically for the legislation finalized, Chairperson, 2 legislative pieces, Chair, the Western Cape Adjustment Appropriation Bill and the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chairperson. It was referred to us as per the ATC's, Chair, as captured, Chairperson, and basically, Chair, for the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill, the House sat between the 11th and the 12th of December to discuss that matter, Chairperson. Chairperson, there were no legislation that were not finalized. There were no oversight visits. There were no interprovincial visits. There were no international study tours. There were no invitations from organizations, and there were no conferences or workshops that the committee attended, Chair. At the end of the quarter, Chair, the committee amounted expenditure to the amount of 60,113 rand and 30 cents, Chair. That's basically, Chair, all of the adverts, Chair, regarding the DORA bill that we did, regarding the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation, Chairperson, including the catering for all of the meetings, Chairperson, which at this moment in time, Chairperson, there is a surplus of 125,997.70 Chair. Chair, if I can go to our minutes, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm just making this bigger. Chairperson, there was the 30th of September, Chairperson, all the members that were there, Chairperson. There was only one apology from Member Mbombo, Professor Mbombo, Chairperson, who I believe was out of the country, Chair, on a parliamentary conference. Chairperson, there's just succinctly basically summarized version of what was discussed and the agenda items that were at hand on that meeting, Chairperson. And then Chairperson, there was just the resolution that was taken and the recommendation that was taken, Chairperson, at that meeting, Chairperson. Chair, if I can go to the next, set of minutes, Chairperson, which is the 3rd of October, Chair. As you know, that was the Provincial Treasury and the Auditor General of South Africa that came to brief the committee on the audit outcomes, Chairperson, of the Western Cape government, Chairperson. Chairperson, so it is just a summary of the main important points that were mentioned and highlighted, Chairperson. And then, Chairperson, there were also some resolutions under heading number 5, Chairperson. And once you attach your signature, it will go off to the various institutions for actioning and for follow-up by the Secretariat, Chairperson, through yourself. Chairperson, the 28th of November was the meeting with the BER. All of the members were present, Chairperson. And then, Chairperson, basically, it was just a general discussion where the professor came to give us an analysis economic analysis of the condition of the Western Cape and of how the DORA impacts on the Western Cape, Chairperson. And that meeting finished at 11:45. There were no resolutions in that meeting, Chairperson. So it was just straightforward, just a meeting, Chairperson, which then at the end of the day closed without any resolutions, Chairperson, or request for further information. Chairperson, then the 4th of December, Chairperson, we had Provincial Treasury Chair, and they came to brief the committee on the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill, Chair, and the second quarter performance report, Chair. Chairperson, you also called for for public participation, Chair, as per the Constitution of the Western Cape, including the Constitution of South Africa, that when we deal with bills, Chair, that there should be public participation. There were no inputs from the members of the public, even though adverts were placed, Chair, including social media adverts on YouTube, etc., Chair. Chairperson, then there were some resolutions, Chairperson, for Provincial Treasury Chairperson, and that has been shared with them, Chair, for further actioning, etc., Chair. Chair, if I can just go to the following minutes, Chair, of the 5th of December, Chair. This is the 1 o'clock meeting, Chair, as the members can remember. The 1 o'clock meeting with Honorable Paul Swart, Chairperson. Once again, there were just welcome and apologies, Chair. Member Honorable Swart came to present from the NCOP's position the factors which impact on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chairperson. And then, Chairperson, we basically just captured what some of the members requested, Chair, or what they basically highlighted, Chairperson, in that meeting, Chairperson. Chair, there were no resolutions, Chairperson, at the end of that meeting, because the members indicated that they would wait for the meeting 4 o'clock with National Treasury, with Dr. Pakis, to see if they would formulate any resolutions or request for information. Chair, this brings us to the 4 o'clock meeting on the 5th of December, Chair. All the members were there, Chair. National Treasury were there. Once again, Chair, Dr. Pakis came and his team came to brief the committee on the provincial equitable share for the Western Cape in terms of the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill 2025, Chairperson. Chairperson, yeah, and then basically we just captured some of the highlights that the members posed, Chairperson, in this minutes, Chairperson. Chairperson, and then that meeting finished at 6 o'clock, Chair. There were no real resolutions, Chair, emanating from that meeting, because the committee indicated that they will basically go over the information and, if possible, will at a later stage basically raise or request further information and make a recommendation, Chairperson. Chairperson, for the 8th of December, Chairperson, basically this was a MS Teams meeting, Chair, that we held, Chairperson. All the members were present. Chair, this was on the committee's negotiating mandate on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chairperson, and we basically just indicated the position of each of the members, Chairperson, and the parties, Chairperson, and the expression on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chairperson. Then there were also some, there was just one resolution, Chairperson, which has been executed, Chairperson. Chairperson, then the 9th of December, Chair, our second last meeting for the third quarter, Chair. It was basically where the committee met again. Everyone was present, Chairperson. It was to meet on the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill, Chair. Chairperson, just all of the votes were captured, Chairperson, in terms of support and minority view, Chairperson. There were some concerns raised, Chairperson, by some of the members that was also just basically captured, Chair, in the minutes. And then, Chairperson, the committee indicated that they will meet on the final mandate of the Division Revenue Amendment Bill on the 10th, Chairperson, of December. There was also a resolution, Chair, under 3.1, Chair, which was basically a committee meet on the 10th of December to basically sit on its final mandate on the ADORA Bill, Chairperson. Chair, if I can go to the last meeting of the quarter, Chair, which was the 10th of December, Chair. The committee met at 10:30, Chairperson. There was an apology from Member Van Minnen, who was basically busy in a constituency, Chairperson. And then, Chairperson, the committee basically sat on its final mandate on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chairperson. And as per the minutes, Chair, the committee resolved to adopt the final mandate, Chair. And that was basically communicated, Chairperson, to the NCOP that the Western Cape delegation confers on the NCOP delegate to support the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Chairperson. And the meeting ended at 11 o'clock, Chairperson. So that's all of the reports, Chair, and that's all of our minutes, Chairperson, for the second and the third quarter of 2025-2026, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David there. So I think we've gone through all of those minutes. Do we have proposers and seconders for that batch of minutes that have come through?
Chair, I'm not sure if I'm able to propose because that first meeting, the original one, I wasn't present, but if need be, I'm more than happy to propose.
Yes, I'm also just not clear on that. You know, maybe if we do have somebody you're proposing, perhaps if two people will put up their hands automatically as seconders, then we are covered in having sufficient proposers and seconders. I don't know if that will work, Mr. Davids.
You're 100% correct, Chair. That will work, Chair. Thank you.
So, Chair, perhaps, yeah, one of the other members, Member Stoffel, or somebody who was present at the original one as well. Then we can, yeah.
And then perhaps just another person to second then, just to, that we are covered.
Chair, Member Stoffel's hand is up, Chair.
Okay, that's right. Are we happy with that? Are you covered, Mr. David?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for that. And I think that that probably brings us to the end of our the items on our meeting agenda. I think what is left to us is, Mr. Davids, I think this is now your last meeting of the budget committee, because you have indicated to me, and I think certainly to members who were involved in the Public Accounts Committee, that you will be leaving the service of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and be moving on to National Assembly to another position there in the next few weeks. And I would certainly like to thank you for being able to work with you. I've certainly enjoyed my time, and it has been an absolute pleasure and privilege in working with you and having your counsel, your advice, and your guidance in the work that we have done, both at public accounts and here in budget. And certainly they are, I suppose, two different type of committees where we sit with a heavy intensity that we go through in public accounts, through or dealing with all of those annual reports, along with the various other meetings there. And then these pressurized meetings that we seem to end up at budget committee as well. So in all of this, thank you very much for the work that you've done. And I want to wish you all of the best in your new career. And let us hope that you are extremely successful there. I'm not sure if there are anybody else who wish to make any comments on that. I have seen a number of little signals coming through. So thank you very much for all of that. And I think that then in effect brings us to the conclusion of this budget committee. And I want to thank everybody for being with us today, and the meeting is accordingly adjourned. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Here we are.